Good morning, everyone. How you doing today? I've got 10 o'clock.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So I want to remind everybody to silence their cell phones because we'll be trying to conduct a meeting and the cell phone noise can be at a minimum. Our board meeting is live streamed. We're here at the Mississippi Department of Education in the Board of Education room on the 4th floor. It is November 7th, 10 o'clock a.m. This is the Central High School building located at 359 Northwest Street here in Jackson, Mississippi. We'll call the meeting to order, and I would like to ask that our three members that are here via Zoom or virtually, please give us your name and your location. Dr. Barrett?
Wendy Barrett, St. Martin High School.
Ms. Werner?
Mary Warren, South Phillips, Mississippi.
And Ms. Riddle?
Riddle, Oxford, Mississippi.
Thank you very much. At this time, will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Matt and the invocation led by Mike?
All right, if you would join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your head. Lord, at a very busy time of year, we thank you for all the blessings that you bring to us. We ask that you give us, that you guide us and that you continue to bless us. We ask you to be with those that are in this room and the employees of this district, of this entity. We ask you to be with our teachers and our administrators, and we ask you to be with our students. And we ask you, God, please, to be with this nation as we go into transition. And we thank you. We ask these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. You have before you the minutes of our October 17, 2024 board meeting. Are there any questions or deletions on that? If not, may I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to let Mary win this one.
Thank you.
Ronnie with the motion, Mary with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. You also have the agenda for today's meeting in front of you. Any questions on it? If not, I'll take a motion to accept today's agenda.
Approve the agenda as presented.
Matt and then Bill. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull out for discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Yo.
Second.
Hee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Dr. Evans, report of the state superintendent.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Like every month so far, it's been very busy. I appreciate the support of everyone here at the department and getting all this stuff accomplished. There's no way. It does definitely take a team to accomplish everything that happens here every single day. And I don't say that enough. I want to say it publicly, how much I appreciate the people that I have the privilege of working with every day here at the department. But as far as the things that have taken place this month, start out with several legislative meetings. Met yesterday with the Senate Ed Committee. Talked about MDE priorities as well as the student funding formula, teacher shortage issues, retention rates, and we provided a preliminary update on the ACT report, which is due December, I believe it's December the 1st. Dr. Gavin, Dr. Vanderford, Dr. Murphy, and Dr. Van Cleve all were with me, as well as Ms. Holly. The others presented as well as myself. We were there for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I thought it was a very productive meeting. The next legislative meeting was a mental health task force. It was basically a follow-up. We've been over a couple of times and presented to that committee. We have leadership on the committee as well, and it was just a follow-up with some conversations with Mississippi Department of Health was there, several other state agencies were there to participate. So just moving forward with those recommendations that were brought forth through the Mental Health Task Force. Also met with Michael Watson, the Secretary of State. We're working on a project to build in a specific piece for financial literacy, a financial literacy program in the state. And I know that we already do this in our CCR classes, but think of this as much more in-depth from a financial literacy piece. This is something that we know is an issue. Anyone you ask would say that this needs to be a priority for our young students, our young people, our future leaders of the world. So we're working on that. He's very, very kind, very gracious, and helping us push through and actually helping find some funding to do that. So that's going to be it's a very worthy endeavor. Madison County had their yearly legislative breakfast. I was there, was invited there and went and participated there, as well as House Bill 1341. That's the active duty military bill that involved the families and them being able to choose schools that they're at. It's causing there's some uncertainty in some pieces of it in relation to like National Guard versus active duty military. Some of the wording, some of the understanding of how to understand the orders that are put forth. This is a very complicated, you would not think it's that complicated, but it's very complicated. So we met to discuss that. Representative Felcher was there, as well as several other people from the National Guard to talk through that. We hosted our first Student Advisory Council meeting. It was very energizing. Had 107 students. Our two reps did an outstanding job. They were definitely they were wonderful leaders who helped organize and push forward, and I appreciate their leadership. We're very lucky to have these two leaders on our team here at the state board for the state, serving as the state board members. The students heard from Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, House Speaker Jason White, Senator Rod Hickman, House Education Committee Vice Chair Kent McCarty. Those were all the people that took a little time to come. Some took a little more than others, but come by and took some time with our students. But I will tell you, they were very engaged. I will tell you one thing that I thought was I just noticed I didn't see one of them pick up their cell phone the entire time. So that tells you that they were engaged, and I appreciate them, and I appreciate the time of those that helped put that on, because it wasn't just those people that spoke to them. There were several MDE staff that helped facilitate and pull all this off. That is quite the endeavor. Ms. Cook and her team that is quite the endeavor to pull off 107 students, and of course you always have some that don't necessarily RSVP but show up. So you have to work all that out to add lunches and space and all the other pieces that are associated with it. So thank you very much for that. Their speaking engagements was at Delta State, speaking in relation to the labor force participation rate study group. Before that, we had a large roundtable. I think there was about 13 superintendents that are all in the Delta region that participated in the roundtable. It was great because I got to see a lot of my friends, but also we really got to the root causes of some of the potential issues that we have there. Senator Sparks was there. He is leading that study group, if you will. And Senator Simmons was there as well. The president, Dr. Enos of Delta State, participated as well. They had 2 days of basically testimony, if you will. And it was I think we made a lot of strides. Basically, Senator Sparks, he was taking government on the road is kind of what his approach to that. So, and he's having those in different parts of the state. I appreciated him inviting me to come and participate. Spoke at Massa. Thanks to Dr. McGee for allowing me to come do that. In that presentation, we discussed the beginning initial processes leading up to the revising of our strategic plan. We talked about accountability model revisions, timeline that's associated with that, and plans. We're in the process of working through a large-scale administrative training transition and trying to align that from our universities, providers, all the way through from the assistant principal and principalship all the way into the superintendency. And aligning all that back with through like MSBA and just unifying it all into one systemized piece. So I'm excited about that work. Had one media interview that involved potential cell phone legislation with WJTV. I think that went well. District visits. We have visited both Wilkinson County School District and Greenville School District in the last week and a half, I believe, week and a half to 2 weeks. Have a couple upcoming visits, special school-wise. We've already visited MSMS and plan on visiting the Bard School for Language Disorders in the next month or so, something like that. We got to get that on the calendar. See here, and I know I'm going, but I'm going as fast as I can. There's a lot. So from state and national partnership pieces, met with the Education Achievement Council and talked about post-secondary processes, how involvement of the community colleges, IHL, private institutions, as well as Ascent to 55. Something else I was very excited about is I think it was last Tuesday, had the first of several meetings. There was 30 to 40 participants. There were superintendents, CTE directors, teachers, MDE staff, legislators, as well as representation from the business and industry to start the process of creating K-12 workforce development programming statewide. So the goal of this is going from pre-K, it's a plan. It's a K-12 workforce development plan for the state of Mississippi. So the idea is to create it pre-K through post-secondary so that we can align the processes across the entire state and then take each of the different 8 eco-regions that we have and aligning a specific workforce development plan creating one for them so that now we can target specific areas and be more nimble in our approach to training with business and industry, but also now we can be more targeted in our resources, whether it be human capital, financial as well. So and we can get that return on the measure of return on investment. So that was a great start. Let's see here. Also met with representatives from Excel and Ed, Dr. Burke and Dr. Oakley, 2 previous people that had worked here. So that had a good meeting with them. And want to just throw one more piece out there. MSA, Mississippi School of Arts, they're doing some work. They're looking at renovating their auditorium. The foundation is seeking to raise somewhere in the neighborhood of about $250,000. I'm proud to see that moving forward. I wanted to inform you of that you knew that work was happening. Their project completion date, their target is August of 2025. And one last piece, we do have an information update for the Literacy-Based Promotion Act. So, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me to invite Dr. Boone and Dr. Nowell to the table, we have just a brief bit of information we want to present to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good morning. At your table, you should have a copy of the aggregate report for the state. The Literacy-Based Promotion Act requires that we provide the State Board of Education with an annual report of performance and student retention, so that's what's on the report. It aligns with your goals and your strategic plan, goals 1 and 2. At previous board meetings, you've already received assessment results, you've already received accountability reports, but this report is specific in the statute to the Literacy-Based Promotion Act. You'll see the number of students who were retained in grades K through 8. This retention information is based on the district's promotion retention policy, not necessarily just LBPA. You'll also see the students who were promoted from 3rd grade to 4th grade with a good cause exemption. There are 5 different categories there, and they're listed for you. Each school district has now received their individual reports, and according to the law, they are required to publish their report, as well as any revisions to their promotion retention plan from the prior school year. The Office of Elementary Education and Reading required every district to submit their policies to us this year. In the past, it had only been the updates, but we got everybody's policies. We went through those. We provided feedback to them to make sure that they met LBPA. If they needed some adjustments, we provided technical assistance to them so they could take their policies back to their boards to be approved. So I'm going to now refer to Dr. Nowell, who's the Executive Director of the Office of Elementary Education and Reading, to discuss next steps for the department.
Thank you, Dr. Boone. As we move forward, the Mississippi Department of Education will continue to support schools and districts in the following ways. First, we will encourage and assist with the adoption of high-quality instructional materials. We'll also continue to increase the number of school districts and district-level staff that's trained in the science of reading. And we will continue to collaborate with our educational preparation programs to include science of reading training for pre-service teachers. And by doing these, we continue to move our Mississippi Marathon on its way.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your first sentence kind of stole what I was going to talk about today, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat myself. I want to thank the staff here for the work that you do every day. I know that in the local school districts, there are a lot of compliments about the speed of which we're getting, you guys are getting back to them, the work that we're doing, the questions that are being answered. So thank you very much for that work as you continue to move forward. Also, you didn't mention the superintendent's meeting. Is that all right? We mentioned that? Yeah.
I know, sir, I didn't.
That's all right. I was just going to say that the superintendents across the state are excited about that meeting, I believe, and are looking forward to coming here and I think it's kind of seeing each other for the first time in a long time, but also getting some great information. I think you're doing the same thing, Ronnie. So that'll be on the 3rd of December for superintendent. So great work there, Dr. Evans. Our student reports. Kate, you ready to roll?
Yes, sir, I think so. So it might sound a little bit like a broken record today, but I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Mississippi Marathon, a testament to our state's resilience and spirit. Improving literacy rates in our state stands as one of our most significant achievements. While teaching children how to read and comprehend is a fundamental skill necessary for flourishing in society, it is equally vital to ensure that these skills are applied to understand core concepts in real-life settings. By implementing digital and financial literacy programs, we can significantly enhance Mississippi students' understanding of essential everyday skills crucial for becoming active and informed members of society. Continuing my trend of technology's impact on education, I'd like to emphasize the importance of digital literacy. Over the past several years, I've noticed a shift towards digital platforms in my daily workload. In many of my classes, I find that I may only use paper and pencil only once a week. This trend clearly indicates that classrooms are transitioning into a more digitally oriented environment. This change is not only exciting, but it provides a unique privilege for Mississippi students, allowing them to learn how to navigate the complexities associated with modern technology. However, we must acknowledge that many students are only familiar with their district-assigned devices, such as Chromebooks or iPads, because they are given to them during the school day. Due to various socioeconomic factors, many Mississippi students lack access to advanced technology at home, which raises the question, how can we ensure that these students will be able to complete assignments effectively on a Chromebook if they are unfamiliar with this operation? By emphasizing digital literacy in our educational curriculum, we can equip students with the necessary skills to navigate the technology that will increasingly show up in their daily lives. As society continues to evolve technologically, it's important that we incorporate digital literacy into our curriculum to prepare students for future challenges. Similarly, financial literacy is an essential area of knowledge that all individuals should understand. While financial concepts are often introduced in college and career readiness classes, it's crucial that we focus on this area at a younger age. By teaching younger students how to manage their finances, we can provide them with a solid foundation that their future education can build upon in those CPR classes. Entering adulthood without a comprehensive understanding of financial matters, such as interpreting job contracts, managing a budget, or recognizing the implications of legally binding documents, can lead to detrimental consequences. By prioritizing financial literacy in our classrooms, we can safeguard students from potential financial issues and empower them to make informed decisions in their adult lives. In conclusion, integrating both digital and financial literacy into our education system is of increasing importance. These skills will not only empower Mississippi students to thrive in an increasingly digitalized world, but also prepare them for future successes in their personal and professional lives. As we move forward, it's our responsibility to ensure that every student is equipped with the tools they need to navigate the challenges of tomorrow. By prioritizing these essential literacies, we can build a brighter future for all students in Mississippi. Thank you.
Good job, Kate. Any questions or comments for Kate? Threw y'all a curveball there, didn't I? Crosby, you ready to roll?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by thanking everyone who set up the Student Advisory Council meeting. It was a great time, and I'm very optimistic about the results and feedback that will come from our students this year. The students have proven to be very excited and very ready to participate. Specifically, in my mentoring section, there were lots of good ideas and suggestions for creating mentoring programs in other districts. As you all know, my ultimate goal for student representative is to bring a product before the board and before the Board of Education demonstrating a self-sustaining mentoring program that can be recreated throughout Mississippi. The program can help kids make the most of everything that they're being offered and can help protect them from tragedies that occur due to bad decisions. And I think we're on the right track. But before I discuss creating and replicating this mentoring program in other districts, I would like to share with you all a video that demonstrates the positive outcomes that we have seen over the first 9 weeks of our little trial program down in Gulfport.
My favorite thing about the mentoring program is that all the people you get to talk with and do games with.
My favorite thing about the mentoring program is that I can feel comfortable talking to people.
Mentoring is really important for these young kids because as someone who comes from a household with 6 siblings, I've seen firsthand the importance of having a genuine relationship with these kids and really inspiring them to be better people. And if you don't have a genuine relationship with a kid and target them early on in life, there's a chance that they can go astray. And it's really, really important that we target these kids early on and make sure that they can't go on that bad path so that they can go on to be lifelong learners and productive members of society.
They tell me what I can do better as a mentor and just like guiding them better, which I really, really like because it helps me just self-reflect and just get better in what I do and how I approach them, because I don't want to just go out and just be like, oh, I'm here, I need to just help you. I want to learn to have a friendship with them and just get closer to them so they feel more comfortable with talking to me.
So after when I'm gone and John Monte's all grown up, they're going to high school, I hope that he's doing great and he's getting those great grades and showing out on the football field and being a good mentor to somebody else, because I try my best to be a good mentor for him. So I hope that inspires him to maybe mentor somebody else and teach him maybe a little bit of what I taught him. Help better somebody else that's younger than him.
We get to match Gulfport High School leaders with our West students between the ages of 3rd and 5th and 6th grade. And I will tell you, this peer-to-peer model is the best I've ever seen. The high school students look forward to coming and inspiring their younger counterparts, and our younger students hang on every word that our older students say. Not only do they get to see these success stories, they get to spend time with them, they get to ask them questions, they get to make plans and set goals so that they, our West students, can also have success stories in the future. Some of the students who are maybe a little bit more reserved or shy, they would come in a little bit unsure, and it was really neat to watch them get to know each other. And after they were comfortable with each other, I saw some students who really, I've not seen smile very much in our hallways. And I've seen them glow now when they get to come meet their mentor.
Yeah, my hope for these kids is that they go on the right path and don't dabble in things that are going to negatively impact their growth. Hence the name Impact. We need to impact these kids and make sure that they're going on the right path in life. Make sure that they're growing into productive members of society and productive humans who will positively impact this world as well.
Thank you all for watching that. I hope when y'all see that, y'all see what we're trying to do. Because, I mean, I come here every month and I feel like this is a huge opportunity. This is a huge opportunity for the high schoolers, for the mentees. It creates leaders and it can help kids. If it helps one kid, it was all worth it. And next month, I hope to bring the data that we've collected from the pre-assessment survey, which measured kids' self-esteem, parent-caregiver relationships, social competencies, program quality, and their current grades. We want to not only tailor the program to meet the needs of the students, but we also want to take the data to be able to refer the mentees to services as needed. And as for the advisory council, I've challenged them to begin gathering information on what is possible and what is not possible in their respective areas so that we can see any common shortfalls. I'm very excited for the potential of spreading this program to other districts across the state. As always, thank you for staying interested in this journey and all of your continued support. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, hey, I love your shirt. Who designed that?
The Impact shirt?
Yeah.
What we do, so the curriculum that we've done, the mentoring, it's a guided mentoring session. And Impact Mentoring is the curriculum that we've done through the Boys and Girls Club. And yeah, we got those shirts and we had a big picture the other day. I'm not sure who designed it, but.
It was part of the program that y'all used.
Yes, sir.
How many kids are in it?
We have about 25 mentors, and they're all seniors, except for 2 of them, which are going to lead the next class. And then mentees, we have a few more. Some mentors have multiple mentees. Like I have 2. Most of them have 1. So right now, we're pushing 30 mentees with all the kids that are coming in once a week and meeting their mentors and having those experiences with them.
Kids voluntarily sign up, or how'd y'all get the mentees?
So the way that through the Boys and Girls Club, that's who we've gone through, and we've kind of flagged the students that seem like they may, depending on their household or their situation, who might need mentoring. And I mean, there's a lot of stories that I'm not going to get into, but you're like, this kid could really use some encouragement. It could really use that positive experience. And whenever you're there in that room, you can really see how these kids light up to it and how they are drawn to that. And I just think that if it helps one kid later down the road make the right decision or the right call, then it was all worth it. And if we could spread that to other places, it could help magnify that impact.
School every day, or they are now because of this.
And I'll bring the data in the next meeting, because we just took it all and we're putting it all into to share it. But yes, so these are kids who maybe their home life isn't
Somehow at risk, huh? Y'all
Mhm.
identify
At risk.
potentially at risk.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I mean, my mom works at the West Elementary School, and she sees these kids, and they're always like, leading up to that one day of the week, they're like, when are they coming? When are they coming? They're super excited to see their mentor. And the mentors, it makes them excited, because some of these mentors that we have weren't that outgoing before they were in the program. It also makes them better leaders, because you put them in that situation, and it draws it out of them and makes them want to be that kind of leader for this student.
What is your plan? How do you expose other schools to this program, if
So-
that's part of your goal?
So right now in the Student Advisory Council, I have my mentoring group, and they're all from different schools. I've challenged them to go and see where we can fit in, where we can fit the program in. Ask who would be willing to maybe sponsor it, who would be willing to oversee the mentoring sessions, and then whenever we meet again, we're gonna make a checklist or a pamphlet that we can present. Where like districts can do this, this, and this, and you will have a effective mentoring program.
One thing that I want to add is thank you for thinking about the future. The idea that you have 20 seniors but 2 juniors to carry it on to next year. That's the biggest piece, is that something that stays around and stays around and stays around, and it's not just a flash in the pan one time. Because I will tell you that a lot of students that come from households, longevity is more important to them than just the flash in the pan. It's knowing that the next year and the next year and the next year, their sister, their brother, or they may still be involved in this. Too often, we have good ideas, we go out, we practice it, we're gone in a year, and then that trust level shrinks back down. So that piece is most important to me, is that there's a plan to make this work forever and ever and a day. And as Jackson said, maybe this young man becomes a mentor in this program when he's a senior, whatever the case may be. So good work, and I always like the idea of a good product at the end of the day. Mr. Pruitt does too with his background, being able to see something and know that it's can be duplicated. So thank you. School performance and accountability, Dr. McGehee.
Well, we had an excellent meeting this morning regarding it, and have heard ACT assessment reports that are really improving and excellent across the board. And we look forward to this year being better than this past year.
Very well. Good news. Internal accountability, Mr. Jacobs.
We had a good meeting this morning, and one item we heard from Dr. Seymour about the Mississippi Migrant Education Program, goals, and Donna Boone and Dr. Judy Nelson were also there. We had an executive session which the subcommittee approved the hiring of an audit supervisor and salary listed for that.
Very good. Sounds like we're staying busy beyond just this meeting every month. That's great work. Thank you very much for the time outside of this meeting this year putting into the success of our students. All right, Dr. Vanderford, looks like you've got 3 items, 2 of them for information and 1 for action. So come on and take the stage for us.
All right, good morning. The first item, as Mr. Chairman stated, is an information item regarding our spring 2024 ACT results. So this is an annual item that we bring to you each year following our spring assessments. This item references goals 1 and 2 of the State Board of Education's strategic plan. We won't spend a lot of time on the background on the ACT. I know you all are familiar with it, but it's designed as a predictive measure of college readiness, not as a content performance measure. And so they're listed are the primary components, but we are going to report in each of the 4 categories for English, math, reading, and science. We're going to have the results reported in 2 ways, with the scale score as well as the benchmark scores. So Dr. Sansel is going to walk us through the results, and we will entertain any questions that you might have following that.
Morning. The average ACT scores, first of all, I want to give you some background on this. 2024 spring of 2024 was the 10th year that ACT was given to our 11th grade students. 2015 was the first year, and we've got on this chart our scores from 2020. all the way through 2024. Now, in 2020, it looks like we have a larger enrollment than we'd had in other years, but we did test ACT twice that year. That was the COVID year. So we did test in the spring for one session, and then we tested primarily the coast schools, which were out for spring break on our first test. We tested those a little bit later that year. So this was our 11th grade students. As you can see, the average high school score was, for our 11th graders, was 17.4, and we had 7 districts that had an average score of 20 or above. And this graphic just shows the trends and benchmark scores for the past 5 years. We will get into the numbers of these. I just wanted you to see how we do plot these out with the bar graphs. We have met all 4 ACT benchmark scores at the end. That means they met the biology, the social science, the algebra, and the English scores. This slide shows a comparison of the 23 and 24 only composite scores based on race. You can see a slight changes in several scores by the overall race, but most students were very similar. The Native Americans did go down by 1 point from 2023 to 2024. So our key findings this year, compared to 2023, we did have an increase of 1,924 11th grade students who were assessed in 2024. This is consistent with the higher enrollment that we had this year, this past spring for our 11th grade students. Students who indicated a more rigorous course-taking pattern, who did the core subjects or higher, obtained, of course, the higher composite score, as you would imagine, than those who indicated a less rigorous pattern of courses taken. The composite scores of the white and Hispanic or Latino students showed no change. We saw that just a minute ago. And the Black or African American students decreased by 1/10 of a point from 2023. And we had 66 districts who showed some increase overall in scores. 68 districts showed a slight decrease in scores, and 7 showed no change. And again, we did have 7 districts who had a score average of 20 or higher for all their 11th grade students. As for graduating class, oh, it went too far. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can go back. Sorry about that. I do want to advance off that slide. Okay, first of all, we have our 3-year comparison of our average ACT scores, and I want you to notice that this is from 21-22 all the way through 23-24, and of course, we test in spring of 2024. And this is for all of Mississippi students, public and private. And I want you to know that this calculation comes from the most recent ACT score. So it's not always the highest score. This is the most recent that we have on those. And that's just how ACT puts this together for us. Okay, this slide shows the public only in the same way. It's the most recent score compared for the past 3 administrations. And this is public school only. And then to get to our benchmarks, I promised you one with numbers. This is the public schools and the private schools in Mississippi who took the ACT assessment. And again, we got approximately 10% who met all 4 ACT benchmark scores. And you can see the various from English to algebra to social science to biology that you can see across the board. For our public schools only, this slide shows the benchmark scores for each area of the ACT, and we had 9% who met all 4 benchmark scores. And our last slide shows that our average composite score of the states who test 95% of all students. Now, this is public and private. And you can see that Mississippi is 4th on the list. Last year we were 2nd from the bottom. but we have moved up to tied for third. It looks like we're fourth, but we're really 17.7 tied with Arizona. But that is a little bit of progress there. And you can see the scores the states who test 95% of their students.
And each year, we have a representative from ACT that comes and meets with the team across the agency to provide the information. And then we have the opportunity to request additional information from ACT in any area in which we feel like we need to take a deeper dive. So we do have a lot of more information that we could share with you regarding this if any of you are interested at any point on further discussions.
I have a question. This is Mary Warner.
Go ahead, Mary.
Hello?
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay. I noticed that Montana was the highest that you had on there. It looked like 19.5.
That's correct.
What is the highest of the best ranking state in the United States?
I think it's Wisconsin. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's Wisconsin. This is not a comparison of all states. This is just the states that utilize the ACT to test the goal is to test 100% of their students. So this is a 95% or above test rate. But we certainly have that information about how all of the states rank, and we can share that with you.
I was just curious. Yeah, I was just kind of curious on that.
The new super scoring will change how people take these tests, where you go and you focus on one area and sort of blow off the other parts.
Well,
Particularly for high achievers.
I think it will change, but I don't know for, like, what would be the rationale for the
They're not going
change.
to change how they report it. They're not going to ever change the highest aggregate, only the ones the school district administers.
To my understanding, they're
Yeah,
not
that's-
changing that. Now, they are making a lot of changes across the board, and they're providing information to us for that. I mean, like, because science is now going to become optional, and so some different changes that they're making, but
But I will say that we have a contract with ACT, and so through 2028, and they will be giving us our four subjects that we currently have, all the way through 2028. Because I didn't want to start doing, are we doing science or not? Because when that got out to the districts, that science would be optional, you can imagine how many questions that we started receiving in our office. And I just told them, I said, right now, we've got a contract with them, and I need to understand what this is referring to. So we are in the, ACT was changing their name. They're going, instead of ACT Inc., they're going to be ACT Educational Corporation, or Corp. And so they have a EIN. So they are making several changes, but our contract will be honored. We're just trying to get the EIN number changed. Right?
and they have a for-profit division now where they were initially nonprofit. But until we have a change in statute or a change in the business rules of our accountability system that would all require state board approval, we'll continue to administer the ACT to 11th graders in the same manner and utilize that information in the accountability system as we currently are until there's some changes.
Cover letter, it talks about the benchmark numbers for math, reading, science, blah, blah, blah. For reading and math are both 22. Looking at the chart that came with that, only 2 schools I could see made the 22. Everybody else was below on math and on reading, and only 1 on math. Does that suggest we have issues with reading that we need to be working on with our students? As an apples to apples comparison.
Well, overall, I think on the slide you see we have a very low percentage of students that do meet the national benchmark. So we would like to see that number increase.
Any other questions? Great job. Thank you. On to item 2.
So item number 2 is also an annual item. This is what we refer to as our gap analysis report, based on our assessment results from the Mississippi Academic Assessment Program. And then we report the data by subgroup for ELA and math. And so we're required by federal law on an annual basis to look at our subgroups and determine if we are making progress in closing the achievement gap between all of those subgroups. So as Dr. Samsel said about the 10th year of ACT, this is also our 10th year of producing this report. The first year the report was produced was for the 15-16 school year. So our seniors that are currently enrolled that will graduate in May of 25, they were third graders when we initially began producing this report. So we do have some longitudinal data regarding closing the achievement gap. As we shared with the subcommittee this morning, it's a little bit difficult to present trend data in a 3 or 5 year period because of the design of this report. But I think as Tim Scott is going to present the results of the gap analysis for this year, he can make some reference back to years past and some of the improvements. So at this time, we'll just let Tim walk through the methodology of how this report is produced, since we have some board members that are new and may not have seen this report before, and then we'll get into some of the data.
Good morning. We'll start with methodology. The gap analysis is based on assessment data from the 2023-2024 academic year. It includes ELA and math assessment results for grades 3 through 8 students and for high school end-of-course assessments. And only the first attempt for each student on those high school end-of-course assessments is included. So if a student is taking advantage of a retest opportunity, those results are not included in the gap analysis. This slide outlines a flow chart that identifies the steps that are taken to produce the gap analysis. We start with that first box of selecting all MAP assessments for the 23-24 school year, and then select the first valid assessment attempt for each student, identify the applicable student subgroup, calculate the percent proficient for each subgroup, and in this case that means a score of 4 or higher on the MAP assessment, then compute the gap or difference in percent proficient between the subgroups, and finally, we compute the change or increase and decrease in gap between 2023 and 2024. For this conversation, an increase is bad and a decrease is good. That's somewhat counterintuitive to how we usually think about assessment data. That is because a decrease in gap means that we are narrowing or closing the gap. This slide identifies the subgroups that are included in the report. Reference groups have a red check mark. Those 5 groups will be white students for race, not economically disadvantaged, students without disabilities, are not limited English proficiency students, and then are male students. Other subgroups listed are being compared to the reference groups in terms of their academic achievement. Final point about methodology. The MDE's goal in our consolidated state plan is for all student subgroups to reach 70% proficiency by 2027. So a gap to that 2027 goal of 70% is also reported for each student subgroup. For example, if a subgroup's proficiency rate is 50%, then their gap to that 70% goal is 20%, because they are 20 points away from achieving that 70% goal. Most of the report that you have consists of the district level report. Here's an example of what that table looks like. It lists each district and the subgroups found in that district. If a subgroup doesn't meet the minimum in count of 10, then those data are masked with an asterisk to align with current best practices and comply with federal law to ensure student privacy. blue columns there are the 2024 counts and proficiency numbers and the gap if one is present. If you see a shaded cell, that means that represents one of those 5 reference groups. The green columns are the 2023 data. The yellow columns indicate whether a gap is present, and if it is, whether it has increased or decreased.
Just on that page right there to make sure I understand. The last 2 columns on that first row, they were 29% deficient in 23, and that's improved to 26% deficient in 24.
That's correct. So that all the students in that district are closer to meeting the state goal of 70%. Here we have the state level summary of the gaps in proficiency for ELA by subgroup. The gaps are shown for both 2023 and 2024, and the change in gap is listed in the last column. You can see that the gap has narrowed for 5 subgroups and widened for African American, Hispanic, and LEP students. There's a dash in the Asian and female columns because those subgroups are performing better than the reference groups. So the Asian students are outperforming the white reference group, and then our female students are outperforming their male counterparts in ELA. Here's the state summary in math. One subgroup narrowed the gap in 2024. However, that does not mean that the other subgroups are stagnant. And we'll look at their gap to goal performance over the next few slides. This table lists the gap to goal state summary by subgroup. So you'd read this chart by saying that the all students group at the top, that group is 22.2 percentage points away from meeting the goal of 70% proficiency. As you can see, almost all subgroups are closing that gap to the 70% goal in ELA. Sure.
Students who tested in 23 are the same students tested in 24, or is it on grade level? You're not tracking individual students' progress. You're taking the whole population.
Correct. This slide is a continuation of the ELA gap to goal summary. Again, most of our subgroups are inching closer to that 70% goal. Same thing in math. Although the gaps between reference groups didn't shrink in 2024, the groups are making progress to close the gap toward our state goal of 70% proficient in math. Before we move away from the gap to goal slides, I would like to note that when the MDE gathered baseline gap to goal data in 2015, 2016, as Dr. Vanderford referenced, these gaps were significantly wider than they are now. For example, for our students with disabilities subgroup in math, their gap to goal in 2015, 2016 was over 60 points. Now it is narrowed to a little over 40 points. So we haven't reached our goals yet, but our students are making significant strides to closing those gaps and reaching our goals. The final section of the gap analysis is the heat map, and the heat map highlights opportunities for support by providing a visual reference of subgroup performance differences. And it allows districts to quickly reference subgroups with the most immediate need for intervention. Here's the key for the heat map. Green indicates no gap or the subgroup is higher than the reference group. And it goes all the way to red. Red indicates that the gap is greater than 25 percentage points. Here's an example of the district heat map. Each reference group's information is presented in blue, followed by the various subgroups for comparison. Again, if a subgroup does not meet the minimum N count, then those data are masked to protect students' privacy. The heat map serves as a tool for schools and districts to identify which students might need additional support. Here's a state-level heat map visual of subgroup performance in ELA. It uses the same shading rules. Green indicates no gap, and red indicates a gap of 25% or more between the reference group and the comparison subgroup. You'll also see those two subgroups in green that are outperforming the reference groups. Here's the same data for mathematics.
Questions?
We're gonna make it to the goal?
We're working
Running
on
out of years, huh?
it. Short time between now and 27, isn't it?
I will say one point though. Can you back up one slide? And you made a point about, for example, the 29.7, the gap, the percentage gap. While that is quite the gap, it has shrunk significantly over the past several years. You want to speak to that? You brought that point up
Yeah,
earlier.
you gave
So,
an example earlier in the subgroup. I mean, in the subgroup.
yeah, how that has, at one time, that was in the 40% range, 50% range, so.
For example, our students with disabilities, for example, that gap back in 2015, 2016 was over 60 points.
But that's a gap to get to 70% proficiency.
Correct.
That's correct.
Do others, is there comparison data for our neighboring states and what that looks like, or it does the same type of assessment like this?
Well, they have their own statewide assessments, and they're required to analyze their data, but it's likely not in the same format in which Mississippi designed our report.
It comes down to how they define
Yes.
proficiency versus how we can be more rigorous.
So that's part of my question. So is proficiency, is a 70% proficiency a good standard, a bad standard, a like standard?
It's a high standard. We have high standards in Mississippi. Our state law for accountability requires that we would reset the cuts if 75% of our students reached our definition of proficiency in Mississippi, but the definition varies. But a number of years ago, 12, 13 years ago, when we adopted new standards and then we aligned our assessments to those standards and then designed a new accountability model, it was all in mind for all of that, one, to align, but two, to be very rigorous. That would allow Mississippi to be compared and be able to compete at a national level. And so over that time when we made all of these changes, established all of these goals in both state law and state board policy, it has allowed us to improve outcomes tremendously and our ranking nationally.
ESSA requires states to establish ambitious long-term goals, and I think that 70% would meet that threshold of ambitious.
And it was approved by the Department of Ed, so it definitely met the definition of ambitious for
And to
approval.
Paula's point, 10 years ago, that's why we began this upward trend on 50th to 35th and the quality points and so on. We do have some work to do. Special ed still bothers me that we got to get some more growth there. Tough growth to do, but still has to be done. And it's, to answer your question, can we get to 70? We got a lot of work to do in 3 or 4 different areas to get to 70. So I think we're on the right track. It is a marathon. Some folks finish it in 2 hours. It may take us 3. So but we are doing good things to move forward as far as the local schools that I see and work with every day on that, Matt. So good work, not only on the data, but the work we're doing behind the scenes to help schools improve in reading and mathematics. Any other questions? All right, we've got one last one you need approval for.
That's right. This is an action item. So as Melissa Beck comes to the table, she is a liaison between the academic office and the assessment office. She primarily works around the assessment piece from the Literacy-Based Promotion Act. So this item is approval of the recommended cut scores on the new kindergarten readiness assessment effective for the 24-25 school year. So many of you may not know, but we were under a 10-year contract with the previous vendor and then had a 1-year emergency contract. So we've had the same standards for the last 11 years on the previous assessment. So when we released an RFP and it was awarded to a new vendor, then we began the process of establishing the standards. And Melissa is going to walk you through that. But before, I just want to clarify for the board that what we're doing is asking for your approval of these cut scores for both literacy and numeracy, and the numeracy part is new. Melissa will talk about that, but contingent upon the full tax. Technical Advisory Committee will meet next week, and that will be the opportunity for the full TAC to review this. We have been working with the Center for Assessment and the chairman of the TAC and the vendor, and we've had previous discussions with the TAC about establishing these standards and the methodology to establish these standards. But because the districts are anxious to see what the new cuts will be, we did not want to wait until the December meeting. So we're asking for your approval today contingent upon the full tax approval next week.
Paula, go a little deeper on what TAC does for us.
Okay.
I mean, we got some new
So
folks.
our, as required by federal law, we're required to have a technical advisory committee that is a group of national experts in the areas of assessment and accountability. Many of them are psychometricians or have our work as psychometricians. So we have, since we do not have a psychometrician on staff, the agency has a contract. It's a bid. We put out an RFP for these services, and individuals or companies respond to the RFP, and then we award a contract to provide those services for us. So our current contract is with the Center for Assessment, and that is where Dr. Chris Domaleski works. He is the chairman of our TAC and also manages the process for our accountability task force that works through us on policy recommendations around assessment and accountability.
And then if I'm not, make sure I don't go astray, they're also the one that helped us earlier in the year when we began to notice the issues with MAP. It's just a good
Correct.
expert team that helps push us, quite frankly, and also helps make sure that our data is clean and does what it's supposed to do. Thank you, Paula.
That's correct. And we always go through the same process for approval, whether it's assessment or accountability. We would have stakeholder engagement or our advisory group. So with accountability, it's the accountability task force. And then we move through to the Commission on School Accreditation, if applicable, the State Board of Education for the APA process. But before we bring anything to the commission or to the board for a vote, we consult with the Technical Advisory Committee first to ensure that it's valid and reliable as well as legally defensible before we go through the approval process for a policy.
All right, so the MDE, TAC, and iStation, who is our new vendor, work closely together to set the cuts for the beginning of the year and the end of the year for pre-K and kindergarten for reading and math. In the past, we've only had end of the year cut for pre-K, and math was combined with the reading assessment. The new vendor has 2 separate assessments for that, so we had to set a reading score and a math score. So because we had a past reading score, iStation completed a linking study with the previous assessment cuts because we wanted to have comparability from the past 11 years with our kindergarten readiness. So it was determined that iStation's 61st percentile, which is considered their ready category, linked very closely with our previous cut for the beginning of the year in kindergarten. TAC and the MDE from there determined that that 61st percentile would be the cut that we would use for pre-K and kindergarten at the beginning of the year and the end of the year for reading and math, so it was comparable between all subject areas. That's it. Any questions?
So 61 is where we're heading?
It's considered ready for iStations.
And then TAC will review this. School districts will know today, TAC will review it, and then we'll get that information out.
And we, as I stated previously, they've been engaged. They met in August, and so the vendor was here, and Dr. Evans participated in the meeting, and we had the conversations to establish the methodology and the process in which we would go through to establish that cut. And then Dr. Domaleski has been involved in conversations with the vendor and the MDE since that time. So we feel very comfortable, but we did want to put that caveat because it has not gone through the approval of the full TAC at this time. But in an effort to provide the information to the districts, we wanted to go ahead and get that approved.
All right. Under the Office of Chief Accountability Officer, do I have a motion to approve item number 3?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Werner, any questions? Yes, Mary?
No,
No question?
I was just gonna approve.
I got your second. Yeah, we're good. All in favor, say aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Very good. Thank you all very much. Dr. Gavin, you've got 3 action items for us today.
Good morning. I do have 2 contracts to bring before the board for approval. One is a contract with Cambion, and it is for, to administer our English language proficiency test. This is a 5-year contract. And the second item that we're seeking approval from the board is for a modification, and it is for a modification with Forvis. That's a CPA firm that's doing our monitoring and all of our ESSER funds.
All right, any questions or comments about those 2? All right. Under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 4A and 4B? Matt?
Second.
And Mike. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You have before you the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve items A, B, C, D, E, F, and G?
So moved.
Mr. Mayo? Second. Miller? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any need for executive session? Any report on meetings that have been attended? Approval to attend any meetings? Is there any other business that needs to come before? Yes, Mr. Pruitt.
Same thing. You had said something about, I have not been to the Mississippi School for the Arts. I don't know if I could have board permission to at some point. I don't have any date or anything, but I would like to go visit the facility and would like to be able to do that. And Dr. Evans, you had said something about being at the DuBard Center. Is that in Hattiesburg, going to be local? When we have employees, including the state superintendent, meeting with local constituencies, is that appropriate for us to join with them if it's just kind of I say social is not the right word, as long as it's not a negotiation or something like that. If it's just a visit, is that something that is appropriate for us to also attend?
I'll take a motion for Mr. Pruitt, if he would like to go to the Bard and the Arts School. Motion? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I invite everybody to come to the art school. It's quite a place.
Say again?
I invite everybody to come to the art school. It's quite a place. It's excellent.
You buying lunch and all that stuff? Gas station.
Not on your state account. We don't have any accounts to work from here, Bill, so you're on your own on that one, right? All right. December board meeting will be held on December the 19th here at the Central High School building in the 4th floor boardroom. That meeting will begin at 10 o'clock. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Miller and Ms. Stern. Mr. Rowell, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Great meeting. Thank you very much.